I'm Steve Horn. I'm the president of the Hall of Fame Association for Norristown School District. Tonight, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary of the association. I would like to thank, and the whole crew would like to thank Nancy Collier and Wilmer Cressman for putting this on. And I will be fast. What I'd like to do is take a few minutes and revisit 1978. First thing, Jimmy Carter was president. We were all listening to the Bee Gees and disco, driving down the street in our car at 63 cents a gallon, listening to our 8-tracks. Okay? Interesting for us, because back then I wouldn't have thought of this, but the Dow Jones closed at 805. I think it's, what, 25,000 now? And my favorite movie was in the theaters, Animal House. And at that time, I was probably entering my third senior year of college, living in Animal House. What I'd like to do is, the person I'd like to introduce was probably in 8th grade at this time, Jeff Brandon, the voice of Norristown. He is a 1983 graduate of Norristown High School. Jeff got his start by doing our off-stage announcing while in high school and has been continuously involved since 1985. It is safe to say that he's been involved with the association for 30 out of the 40 years. He is currently the regional vice president of TD Bank. So, Jeff, if you would come up, please.
Thank you, Steve, and good evening, everyone. It makes for an appropriate occasion that we begin our evening in reverence. So it's my privilege to bring forward a gentleman who is a graduate of the class of 1962 at Norristown, a Hall of Champions inductee for basketball, track, and cross country, the Reverend Jim Williams, to offer our invocation. Pastor Williams.
Thank you, Jeff. I would ask all of you to join me in asking our Creator to bless our time together this evening. And this has been some kind of a family reunion, so it's been a great time so far. Let's pray together. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, we give you thanks, and we come together this evening. We honor you with praise, and we thank you for your many, many blessings that you've showered upon each and every one of us. We thank you for the Hall of Fame, Hall of Champions Committee and Association that has carried on for all these 40 years. And just as you've blessed us in the past, we pray that you would continue to bless us in the future. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for your love, your grace, your mercy that you shower upon us on a daily basis. We also thank you, Heavenly Father, that you've been with us. You've seen us through many, many trials and tribulations, and you've brought us through. For that, we give you praise, and we give you all the glory. We thank you now, Heavenly Father, for this food that we're about to receive, and pray that you would bless it to the energy and nourishment of our bodies. And as you renew us physically, we pray that you would renew us both spiritually and morally as well. And these things we pray and ask in your holy and precious name with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jim. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask that you all please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Norristown Area High School JROTC Color Guard, sponsored by Sergeant Gene Sheffo. And please remain standing then and join in the singing of our national anthem.
Color guard, hold, right, base, present, colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we
Thank you. Please be seated. The opening remarks will be incredibly brief. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The restrooms, if you're of the need, are through the lobby and on the left-hand side. Dinner will be served by our friends at Presidential Caterers, and we have a wonderful program scheduled for you upon the conclusion of dinner. So enjoy your meal, and we'll be back to you shortly. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed your dinner. We'd like to get started with this evening's program. Give you just a second or two to get yourself settled, but we'd like to get underway. We've got a fantastic array of guest speakers and presentations for you this evening, and looking forward to presenting that to all of you. So let's give a round of applause to our friends at Presidential Caterers for a wonderful meal. Thank you. And our servers. So many of you, if not all of you, have had the opportunity, I hope, to attend some of the induction ceremonies over the past 40 years for the Norristown Area High School Hall of Fame and Hall of Champions. And 40 years is a fairly remarkable number. I've already gone off script, which is probably making Wilmer nervous and Rory nervous, but we'll get back on script shortly. I was saying to Bob Butera at dinner, my children have attended and are attending Perkiomen Valley High School. Great place, but they just had their first Hall of Fame induction ceremony a couple of weeks ago. And we've been doing it for 40 years. And that's no small feat, so it's an amazing thing, and I do think a round of applause is in order. And that's the perfect reason to recognize the officers and directors of the Hall of Champions Association. So I would ask that you hold your applause until we've recognized all of those folks, and I would ask them to please rise and remain standing until all the names have been announced, and then we'll recognize you collectively. Let's start with President Steve Harner, Vice President Bob Shorty Landis, Recording Secretary Cindy Serator, Treasurer Guido Martinelli, Corresponding Secretary Pat Stout, the other directors of the board, Robert Berardelli, Nancy Collier, Joseph Wilzinski, Dottie Rader, Wilmer Cressman, Judy Baca, Kathy Nicholas, Jim Williams, and Rory Zumo. That's an amazing group of people. To perpetuate something of this magnitude for such a time period is truly astounding. It's certainly a tradition of ours over the course of these induction ceremonies, at the beginning of every ceremony, to recognize the past inductees who are present, and we're going to do that again this evening. We're going to ask that all of the prior inductees who are with us tonight at dinner come forward as I call your name. Again, I would ask that in the interests of time, we save our applause until all of the prior inductees have been introduced. But what we'd like to do is to get a picture of everyone that's here tonight. So as I call your name, and it is alphabetical, so you can prepare yourselves accordingly. We'll go Hall of Champions first and then Hall of Fame. But I would ask that you come forward, stand in front of the podium, and once we have all of those prior inductees present, we're going to take a group photo. So if I can get your cooperation in that regard, that'd be greatly appreciated. So beginning with our Hall of Champions inductees. Frank Rinky Batson, class of 1954. Lisa Ortlip Cornish, class of 1978. Dorothy Fichter Cross, class of 1977. Stephen P. Fiddler, class of 1998. Clifford Giddens, class of 1967. Jenny Hall, class of 1979. Charles Holmes, class of 1958. Philip Nurr, class of 1958. Ronald Livers, class of 1973. Stephen Marino, class of 1979. Mary Jane Clark Moyer, class of 1956. Derek Perry, class of 1993. David Stagliano Sr., class of 1965. And Jim Williams, class of 1962. Now we've got a crossover entry because we're blessed to have with us tonight a gentleman who was a member both of the Hall of Champions and the Hall of Fame. So I'd ask that Charles Blockson, class of 1952, also come forward. Our other Hall of Fame inductees, Christine Allman, class of 1970. Robert Berardelli, class of 1959. Robert J. Butera, class of 1952. David C. Fry, class of 1973. Stephen Harner, class of 1973. Oscar Johnson, class of 1954. Michael Marino, class of 1959. Joseph McGinley, class of 1992. James Mullen Jr., class of 1959. Clarence Rader, class of 1949. Maribeth Roman Schmidt, class of 1984. Jerry E. Spinelli, class of 1959. Charles Tornetta, class of 1949. Joseph Vasily, class of 1970. Donald Waddington, class of 1949. Emily Williams, class of 1980. Have I missed anybody? Have I missed an inductee? Because if I didn't call your name, come forward and I will shout it out. So this is an amazing group of people. And let's have everybody come in a little closer collectively. Maybe we can do that, and the photographer's going to get us set up. But while we're setting up the photograph, how about a big round of applause for these amazing inductees?
All the wrestlers are back, for sure. Okay? All the wrestlers are back. All right? Turn sideways. There we go. Give him a profile. All right? Jeff, you gotta get down a little bit. You can't see over
Everybody have their photos? All right, tweet those, post them on social media. So folks, this is historic, right? Look at this group of folks and what they've accomplished. Please take some time to look through your program at the complete list of prior inductees into the Hall of Fame, Hall of Champions. It is nothing short of remarkable, and we're thrilled that these folks would be so gracious as to come back and join us this evening and to honor their fellow inductees. Before we begin with our presentations, just a couple of notes about some prior inductees who weren't able to join us tonight. James Irwin, Norristown class of 1973 and an inductee into the Hall of Fame, is working in India this week, but he wanted us to know that he sent his best wishes. In addition, and this is fairly significant, I'm really fascinated by this, we want to acknowledge that Hall of Fame inductee Rudy Cusimano would like to be here, but he is in France receiving the National Order of the Legion of Honor, the highest award for superior military and civil accomplishments for qualified citizens awarded by France, and it's an award established by Napoleon Bonaparte in 1802. Rudy's being honored for his investigations and subsequent writing on a heretofore hidden victory of General Gilbert Motier de Lafayette in his essay, 3 Days in May, General Lafayette's Stunning Escape from Barren Hill, and the mock court-martial of British General Sir William Howe. To me, that's a remarkable example of how our inductees continue to influence not just our community, but the world. So congratulations to Rudy Cusimano. And now, our first guest this evening, and I'd like to welcome to the podium, is the new superintendent of the Norristown Area School District, Christopher Dormer. Superintendent Dormer.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Jeff, for the nice welcome. And good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Christopher Dormer. I'm proud to be the new superintendent of the Norristown Area School District. On behalf of the Board of School Directors and the entire school district administration, I want to thank each and every one of you, committee members, friends, family, and inductees alike, for your ongoing and undying support of the Norristown Area School District by your continued commitment to events such as this. So tonight is a celebration. And it goes beyond the 40 years that our committee has been doing their outstanding work. This is really a celebration of the long, over 100-year history of the Norristown Area School District and Norristown Area High School. But for 40 years, it has been so vital that the committee has decided to celebrate the accomplishments of our alumni. Because when you think about when someone graduates from high school, that is the culmination of really not only the lifetime work of the student, but also their family and their parents, getting them ready for that next step in life. And to me, it's such a wonderful tribute to have a dedicated committee of people that says we need to celebrate and we need to recognize those people when they go beyond our borders of Norristown and go on in their lives, to recognize them and celebrate them for what they've accomplished, which is really, as I talked about, not just the things that they do, whether a sports accomplishment or high school or college accomplishments or those things in their professional career, but it's that culmination of really a life's work. So to the committee, I really give you my thanks for your foresight and for 40 years of commitment in saying that it is so important that we recognize our people, because that's what we are. As an education institute, we're about people. And we can never lose sight of, we need to take care of people and say thank you for what they do. Secondly, I want to take just a moment to thank all of our inductees that were up here. And again, I hope to get a copy of the picture that we can push out on social media and through our means. Because to me, it is so important that everyone in this room has had a positive experience with the Norristown Area High School, Norristown Area School District. Or else you wouldn't be back here. You wouldn't continue your support and your love and the stories that you're all sharing this evening. But to me, it's our inductees which we need to continue to celebrate and inspire our current students and hold them up as role models to say, this is what you can achieve as a result of an education from the Norristown Area High School and the Norristown Area School District. Because we all know we have something special. I've been superintendent now for a few months. I've been with the district for a few years, and I keep trumpeting it as loud as I can. We truly have something magical and special here in Norristown. You all know it because you all lived it much longer than I have. And our inductees, I thank you that you've taken what we gave you in those K-12 years, planted that seed, and seen it bloom into something incredible that our students can now aspire to in the future. So for our committee, thank you very much. For our inductees, please continue to be part of our fabric and part of our legacy. And again, I hope to continue to see everybody in my role as superintendent for a long time, but to have you continue your support of the Norristown Area School District and the wonderful work that this committee does. Thank you very much.
Next to the microphone, please welcome the current principal of Norristown Area High School, Ed Roth. Principal Roth.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. So my name is Ed Roth, and I have the great privilege of being the principal of the Norristown Area High School. And I know that tonight is all about history, but I wanted to speak to you for a moment about the present, because whether you haven't been back at the Norristown Area High School for a week, a month, or a year, or 40 years, I promise you that there are great things going on. And you really have to look no further than at some of the beautiful young men and women who are in the back of the room here, and at their staff members who are here with them. You know, we talk a lot, we hear a lot about kids these days. Kids are so wrapped up in their cell phone, well, they are, but so are we. But we hear about, you know, the kids don't have old-fashioned values, and it's not like it used to be. Well, I'll tell you what, come and walk the halls of the Norristown Area High School, and you will find 1,800 young men and young women who have the same values that you had when you were in high school. They hold doors for you, they say hello, they say please and thank you. They're appreciative of what you do for them, and we're appreciative of what they do for us. It's truly a special place. And maybe once you walk away, I feel like everyone who graduates from high school, the next day we all start saying, oh, that school's not like it used to be. And I don't know what the school was like 40 years ago, but I know what it's like today, and it is a fantastic place to watch young men and young women blossom into the adults who are going to lead tomorrow. One of the things that makes my job easy as principal is that creating a sense of unity and creating a sense of self at a high school with deep tradition and deep roots, you know, we do have a lot of great people to look up to. You don't have to look far inside or outside of the building to find people with great connections to being a Norristown Eagle. And I often tell the kids that while I love the Norristown Area High School, I'm not a Norristown Area graduate. So it's not my school, it's their school. And for those of you who are here tonight, it's your school. And so I want to make sure that you know that the door is always open for you to come home. We would love to see you anytime. Come walk the halls. I was telling someone earlier tonight, we'll make you a schedule. You can go through the day and you can still eat the cafeteria food. So I appreciate all that you have done. Really, when you look through the book, it is absolutely inspiring and fantastic. And you know, there are great accomplishments that come out of Norristown that rival any school, any town, any place that you can find. So I thank you for letting me be a part of this special evening. I thank the many of you who I've met in my year and a half here who really have made me feel at home here, and this is a great home to have. So congratulations to all of you. It's great to see you all together, and I hope to see you on Eagle Drive soon. Have a great night.
Thank you, Ed. And I hope you'll take him up on the invitation. I do have the opportunity now and again to get to the high school, and it is an amazing place and inspirational too. So the magnitude of planning that went into this evening's activities, I think, is difficult to discern if you weren't directly involved. But there were many people involved in the effort. But two folks that we want to bring forward who really were drivers of this notion of a 40th anniversary. And first, please welcome, from the class of 1949, one of the original members of the board of the Hall of Champions Association, Nancy Collier. Nancy's going to talk a little bit about our history.
Good evening to everyone. It's just a pleasure and a real joy to see so many familiar faces here this evening, and especially a warm welcome to our distinguished Hall of Champion and Hall of Fame inductees. As we pause, we reflect, and we celebrate your outstanding achievements to Norristown on this 40th anniversary celebration. Thank you. As you may know, I'm Nancy Collier, born and raised in Norristown, went through all the elementary, junior, high school years, and I'm honored to say that I also taught here for 25 years, and I'm proud of saying that. I know I have been caused or thought of as a sentimentalist, and yes, I am a sentimentalist. So I would just like to digest a moment and think about my years here at Norristown Area School District. Each of us have special memories and I would like to share some of my memories to you. As a student growing up in the early 40s and 50s, sports, as a participant or a spectator, were an important part of our lives. I was never that athletic, but I was out there cheering all the time. I was on the hockey team, third string, but I enjoyed the camaraderie and the feeling of belonging. I will never forget, as an elementary student, in the spring, we would have annual field day competition down at Roosevelt Field, where all the elementary schools got together. And it was really fun and inspiring and so forth. I will never forget in junior high school, attending, cheering, supporting the football team, the basketball team, swimming, track, all of the sport teams, because that was part of our life through those years. It was a priority in our life. I will never forget on a crisp Thanksgiving Day, attending the Norristown rivalry Upper Merion, entering the stadium packed at Roosevelt Field, being greeted with the warm smile and twinkling eyes of Lou Spinelli collecting the tickets at the gate there, watching the director Damon Holton's prestigious marching band across the hall there, across the field, before you would return home to that nice warm turkey dinner. But these are memories that we have had growing up. I will never forget each spring, the exciting pen relays down in Philadelphia, where many of Norristown's records were highly esteemed. Yes, there's no doubt that sports, whether as a participant or as a spectator, played a major role in our lives in growing up. Now, you probably wonder why and how did this organization begin? Let's step back to the year of 1977. What was going on in the Norristown School District at that time? It had just been 3 years since the transition of a brand new high school on Eagle Drive was consummated there. It replaced the former A.D. Eisenhower School. Now, during that humongous physical move from A.D. Eisenhower to the new school, many outstanding athletic records, newspaper articles, prize photographs of many of the former championship district, state, national, and international teams had been placed in a temporary room, storage room, out of sight, and they were being destroyed. Valuable pieces of evidence documenting the rich, impressive history of sports in Norristown schools, which were not only recognized here in the Norristown community, but in the surrounding area of Philadelphia. These records needed to be permanently preserved, or they would be lost for the future generation. So in January 1977, beginning of the school year, athletic director then, Curtis Kuhl, and he was in the class of 48, and human relations advisor, Charles Blockson, class of 52, they discussed the need and a plan for how we could permanently keep these records, that they wouldn't be destroyed. So Kurt and Charlie invited school district leaders to a meeting in the Norristown High School cafeteria. There, Lou Spinelli from the class of 28, the principal at that time, Les Ekman, and superintendent of schools, Dr. Jay Gruner, school board members, Charles Bishop and Jim Wood from the class of 47, who is here this evening, and myself. I was the only woman, and the only reason I was invited was that I happened to be president of the Norristown Teachers Association at that time. So that's the reason I was there. The purpose of this meeting was to organize a committee to perpetuate these records and not have them destroyed. Not only did the students bring distinction to the community and an honor to the Norristown area, but it developed a sense of pride and fulfillment and accomplishment to these students. The committee that day decided that there should be a Hall of Champions established in the athletic wing. They decided to have monthly meetings, and they formed a newly Hall of Champions committee, and they invited other alumni and the community members in Norristown. In February, they met, and they certainly agreed that there should be athletes recognized and remembered. However, they also felt there was a need for alumni who have graduated and have made substantial contributions in various categories of life. They too should be recognized. Thus, the inception that there be two divisions, two halls. And I know some people are confused, the Hall of Champions, which recognizes outstanding contributions in athletes while they were a student in the high school, and a Hall of Fame, which honors alumni who followed through graduation, have distinguished themselves in their life's pursuit. Thus, we have the two halls, the Hall of Champions and the Hall of Fame. I believe you will agree with me that there's no greater influence on the youth than role models. Our students of Norristown High School do not have to look to other states, New York, California, the NFL, or the entertainment field to find their role models. What greater role models could we have than students that attended the school and what they did with their lives after they graduated from Norristown High School? We have categories, we have inductees that include the arts, publishing, medicine, business, law, music, education, military, pharmaceutical, religion, banking, the theater, athletes, humanitarians, civic leaders, authors, science, government. What greater role models could we have right here that grew up in Norristown and what they've done with their lives? We are extremely proud of the honored inductees who have gone on and have exemplified our high school motto, learn and live to serve. And certainly tonight we have seen the people that have learned and lived to serve. There was a tremendous appeal. Their work had to be done. They had to do a lot of research. They had to do a lot of compiling of data for this great endeavor. And money was needed to get started. And some of you may remember Coach Art Herr. He thought, well, we should contact the school board and at least get started with a sum of $2,000 to help initiate, and the board came through with this request. There were publicity drives, there were collections taken up, and in addition, the committees seek the advice of surrounding colleges to find out about the criteria. A lot of the colleges had halls of fame, so the criteria for the two halls were initiated that way. So in return, our association, which I'm proud to say is one of the first here in Pennsylvania. Since that time, we have helped other school districts, and as Mr. Roth said tonight, I believe it was Mr. Roth, that Perkiomen Valley had their first induction, and we were 40 years ahead of them. Of course, they weren't in existence 40 years ago either. But I must say that you can see over the years that the Norristown Area School District has shown leadership, not only being an innovator of honoring students and alumni, but we have been a leadership in new and innovative concepts in education. We are grateful and congratulate our school administrators and the school board members for their direction and guidance. In June, Park Ulrich Esquire, the class of 48, distinguished lawyer and alumni, was appointed solicitor who set up the association laws, and they were adopted by the association. You have heard the people that were the founders of the association, and I would like to recognize Jim Wood is here this evening. He was one of the original founders, and Jim, we're glad to see you here tonight. And Wilmer Cressman, of course. As you know, that there are engraved plaques that are given to the inductees at the public induction ceremony. And until recently, we had a brass plaque in the lobby of the high school where the names of the inductees were printed with the date. Also, in the gymnasium, they had a similar one. However, in 2013, our president, Stephen Harner, we suggested that we build showcases. And in these showcases, they're throughout the school. And there's one near the art department, there's one near the English department, there's one near the science department. And they aren't just names. They have the picture of the inductee and their biography. So the students, in walking around the classrooms, walking through the halls, can look up and see a face and read what they've done. And to me, that's been a tremendous asset in our program. So I finally would like to end by saying that we are also fortunate to have strong, exemplary leadership in our presidents, President Steve Harner. Also, I would like to recognize Kurt Kuhl, who is deceased, Wilmer Cressman, Wallace Evans, James Wood, Guido Martinelli, Rudolph Cusimani, and William Markley. We are indeed proud of the past, preparing for the future. We thank you for attending and continue your support.
Thank you, Nancy, for those reflections and that valuable context for why we're here tonight to celebrate 40 years. One of the things that Nancy said struck a chord with me. She called the school on Eagle Drive the new high school. And you know you're at least 50 years old and from Norristown when you call a place that's been open for 44 years the new high school, right? But how many people still call it the new high school? Yeah, that's right. You know that you do. Just a public service announcement. The staff here said that this lovely purse was left by the bar, and while it matches my shoes and my belt, I don't want to take it home with me, so I'll make sure that it's over here for the rightful owner, okay? Next up to the podium, another member of the class of 1949 and an original board member of this association to offer some remarks. Please welcome Wilmer Cressman.
Welcome and good evening, Hall of Fame inductees, Hall of Champion inductees, Hall of Champions Association members, school district personnel, and school board members and guests. What a wonderful evening tonight for our 40th celebration. I want to take this opportunity to thank the hardworking committee members who are listed in your program for their dedication and in making this evening possible. Will the committee members just please stand? Come on. They have been working on this for over a year, and it's finally come to a culmination tonight. Nancy Collier and I are co-chairing this celebration because we are the only active members left from the 1977 founding of this group, of the Hall of Champions Association. I also want to say that Dr. Jay Gruner, who was the superintendent of schools at the time, sends his best wishes and was regrettable that he could not attend tonight due to health reasons. Jay and his wife Elaine live in Wayne, Pennsylvania. Our association has come a long way since its inception in 1977. To date, we have inducted 187 graduates into the Hall of Fame and 193 graduates into the Hall of Champions. For our guests tonight, Nancy had covered what the criteria is for both of those halls. Among our inductees are graduates who have achieved notoriety in the nationwide, and internationally. We had 2 members from Norristown High School in President Ronald Reagan's cabinet. Probably the only time in history 2 members of the cabinet were in office at the same time from the same high school. We have had a Tony Award winner, several Olympic athletes, an Olympic swim coach, a baseball major league manager, an international scientist who saved the cotton crop of the world by marketing the insecticide 7, a major pharmaceutical CEO, and the longest tenured coach in the history of the United States Naval Academy in Alcantello. He's still there. Our first induction took place in 1978, and shortly thereafter at one of our monthly meetings, Jerry Seckler, a member of the board of directors, placed $50 on the table and said, "I want to be the first lifetime member." He said that he wanted this money to be preserved and only the interest used for expenses for the association. The board of directors adopted his wishes, and today we have 321 life members. Another former board member that I would like to talk to you about is Lou Spinelli. Lou is the father of Jerry Spinelli, who is here with us tonight. Jerry is the author, famous for his authoring of children's books and a Newbery Medal winner. Lou was the most loyal Norristown High athletic supporter in the history of the school, and I believe that it will remain that way forever. He lived and died blue and white. For over 50 years, He never missed a football game, basketball game. He traveled with the teams to away games on team buses. I even ran into Lou when I went up to watch practice of a football team, and there was Lou. Lou's wife, Lorna, was a gem and a saint, for she spent many hours and hours at home while Lou attended Norristown Area High School sporting events. One February meeting of the Hall of Champions Association I will never forget. It was just before the basketball playoffs were to begin, and Lou Spinelli was there, and I looked at Lou, and I knew something was wrong. I asked him if there was something bothering him. He replied that he had to go on vacation to Florida. I said, "That is wonderful, wonderful. You will be there for the Philly spring training." Then he told me that he would miss the Norristown basketball playoff games. He actually started to cry. How proud are we to have had such a supporter in our school? Lou created many scrapbooks on Norristown football and basketball teams, which are now in the possession of the Hall of Champions Association. Lou is no longer with us, but I am sure he is pleased with our 40 years. We tend to age and get long in the tooth after 40 years with the association. We definitely need younger alumni and friends to step up and continue the work we have done for our alumni. We meet every third Thursday of each month at 7:30 in the high school, except for December and July, and we would be most happy to see some new faces at our meeting, which we open to the public, and our next meeting is November 16th. Since this entire evening is devoted to successful graduates, I want to close with a poem entitled, "What is Success?" that was written anonymously. It goes, "Success is speaking words of praise, in cheering other people's ways, in doing just the best you can with every task and every plan. It's silence when your speech would hurt, politeness when your neighbor's curt. It's deafness when the scandal flows, and sympathy with others' woes. It's loyalty when duty calls. It's courage when disaster fails. It's patience when the hours are long. It's found in laughter and in song. It's a silent time of prayer in happiness and despair. In all of life and nothing less, we find the thing we call success." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will. Next, please welcome to the podium Rory Zumo, Hall of Champions board member and Norristown High School graduate from the class of 1970. Rory.
Good evening. Everyone has said what a wonderful group of people you are, and you are. It's exciting to see not just the inductees, but the graduates of Norristown High School and the graduates of Norristown Area High School and all the current Norristown High students who are here with us helping out and doing such a great job tonight. But for all of that, we wouldn't be here without the efforts of many people, as you have heard in the last two speeches. But there are two people in particular who deserve special recognition, a recognition that they would never seek. Nancy Collier and Wilmer Cressman, would you both come up here, please? Nancy. No, they didn't know about this. No, it was in my script. It was in my script. They were there, as you know, from the beginning and persisted through 40 unbroken years of active engagement in board meetings, in inductions. We've all been in there, in and out. I was on the board a long time ago, and then I wasn't, and we all tend to come and go. The two of them, not once. They've been through every meeting, and some of them were a little crazy, and have pushed and prodded and encouraged, cajoled if they had to get us to do all the things that brought us to here today. Everything they can to preserve our past, but as they both already said, always with an eye to the future, to let students like the ones that are sitting right out there understand the legacy that's behind them, and to show that they can and should aspire to the ranks of where all of you inductees are. To understand that through whatever troubles there may be, Norristown Area High School is and has always been a very special place. Nancy and Wilmer, you've done all this and more, truly embody the NAHS motto of learn and live to serve. I want to call on my committee co-chair, Chris Allman, to join me to present from the Board of Directors a small token of our love and appreciation. Okay, you're welcome.
There aren't two more deserving or humble people in this room, which is what makes giving them that recognition so much more meaningful. So congratulations again to Will and Nancy. And now a special treat. Frank Rinky Batson from the class of 1954 was inducted into the Hall of Champions in 2001 for his athletic prowess. But tonight, he's sharing the fruits of his prodigious artistic talent with us, and he has agreed to donate 3 of his paintings, which are on display in the back of the room, and they're going to be raffled off tonight to 3 lucky winners. So Rinky, you get to do the honors. Would you come forward and choose the lucky winners? And once your names have been selected, you can head on back. I think Shorty Landis is in charge, and we'll make sure that you get these beautiful framed paintings from Rinky Batson. And if you haven't seen his work, it's amazing. These are iconic Norristown scenes. Roosevelt Field at a football game, Main Street, Erie Street, just amazing stuff. Rinky, come on up. Let's, big round of applause for Rinky Batson, please.
Jeff, thank you very much. Doesn't he do a great job, folks? Jeff, how many years have you been introducing the Hall of Champions?
30 plus.
35 years. He's been that great guy up there out of sight and announcing all of us would be whatever. Thanks for your... a number of years ago, I was volunteered onto the reunion committee for my class of 54's 45th class reunion. And at the first meeting, we were all gathered around trying to figure out how we could make some more money for the class treasury to help defray the cost of the ticket for the reunion. And now I'm sitting there and I'm trying to get myself established as a legitimate artist at the time. And I came up with the idea of, I'll do a painting of some Norristown scene, and we'll chance that off and make more money for the class. Hey, great idea. So that's what we did. I painted the iconic Norristown scene, Main and Swede Street with the bridge going across. And anybody from Norristown back in the day remembers that scene, and it was well received. I also did about 25 prints of that picture. And at the reunion, I gave a print to each member of our committee, plus our class sponsor, Mrs. Borzelica. And the week after the reunion, I started getting telephone calls from people all over the place saying, do you have any more of those? I'd like to get one of those pictures of Norristown. So I quickly ran out of what I had left, and thus begun. That was the first. It's 22 and counting now of a thing that became known as the Norristown Remembered series. So that's how that started, and we have 3 of those reproductions back there that Shorty Landis put together. They're matted, framed, glassed, and framed, and that's how it all started. Thank you.
Rinky, thank you. Now we get to do the honors. We'll let you choose the names of the lucky winners. If you want to pull them out of the bag, I'll be happy to read them off.
I'm going to go real deep on these, something I didn't do in my baseball playing days. But I can't go too deep. You want 3?
3.
3. One, is that 3? One goes back.
I don't know who that was. I didn't see it. They were face down. All right. So the winners, the very lucky winners, are the Reverend Byron Craig, Ron Livers, and Ed Roth. Congratulations, Ed, Ron, and Byron. There you go. And if you're nice to Rinky, maybe he'll autograph something for you, all right? So please be sure to make sure that you leave with those beautiful items. So Ed, Ron, and Byron. Rinky, thank you. Thanks so much. Congratulations, and thank you. Very gracious of Rinky to say a few kind words about me. The only other time that I've come out from behind the curtain was the 25th anniversary, because Wilmer tells me I have a great face for radio. And so I look forward to seeing you perhaps at a 50th anniversary. One day it'll be me in front of the camera. The next presentation is a special one. They're all special tonight. We have a speaker whose career in business and politics is storied. And from the halls of the Pennsylvania State House, he went to the Philadelphia Flyers, where he was team president, was president of the New Jersey Devils, went to the Pennsylvania Convention Center and led that amazing organization, affiliations with the Philadelphia Orchestra, and a host of community endeavors that would take an evening to discuss. But let's welcome, please, a gentleman who certainly epitomizes our motto of learn and live to serve, a graduate of the class of 1952, Robert Butera. Bob.
Thank you. It all began in a 4th grade history class at the Gottwald School in about 1944. The subject matter was American heroes. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, on and on and on. Sometime during the class, a young African-American boy, then called Negro, raised his hand. And he asked the teacher why they didn't study any Negro heroes. Now listen to this response. This is in the 1940s. Charles, said the teacher, Negroes have no heroes. Negroes are here to serve whites. That's an exact quote. Incidentally, 18 years later, she apologized. So that was the beginning of this story. It culminated in 2017 when this same boy, just an average guy from Norristown, received the most coveted award in this region, the Philadelphia Award. The Philadelphia Award was instituted in 1920, and the 98th person, recipient, was Charles Blockson. Now you're probably thinking, what happened in between? How could this young boy, who asked a perfectly legitimate question, but the only one who raised the question, how could he one day grow to be recognized as the 98th recipient of the Philadelphia Award? When you read the list of recipients, you realize that he's in pretty special company. Marian Anderson, every governor, every senator, every this and every that, leaders of business, and so on. And then you get to 98, Charles Blockson. I was driving into Philadelphia. I don't know what month it was in 2017, and the phone rang in my car. And it was the chairperson of the Philadelphia Award Committee. He said, I've got news for you. He said, the award this year is going to Charles Blockson. I almost drove off the road because, listen to this, those of you who are younger, we have been friends for 70 years. Not just acquaintances, but best friends. And I said, oh my goodness, that's amazing to me. I have been to many, many of these presentations. And I thought, Charlie, he's arrived. And he said, there's one more thing. He wants you to present him to the award ceremony. Well, it's like the thrill of a lifetime, because I lived those years in between the 4th grade and the award ceremony. However, as close as we were from that August day at football practice at Stewart when I first met Charlie, I knew all about him. Everybody knew who Charlie Blockson was in those days, even though we were only in 9th grade. He was an icon then. And that was as an athlete. So 5 state championships later in the shot put and discus, a national championship, indoor championship in the shot put, football seasons, football victories, yards gained. Nobody could stop him one-on-one. Penn State football. And then we split briefly. He went into the Army, and I went to law school, and we came back to Norristown. And only then did I realize that this fourth grader had a fire lit in his heart and in his soul that he was determined to see through, and that was this. He wanted to prove that there were indeed Negro heroes. So how did he do this? He began collecting. None of us knew this. We all played sports together, and we were great friends, and we socialized, and we broke some barriers. We actually had parties with mixed race. We didn't know that we weren't supposed to do that, but we did it. And but we didn't realize that on weekends, Charlie would get on the P&W and go to Philadelphia and rummage through bookstores. And he would buy books that nobody else wanted at that time. Rare books, all on the subject of African American history. So here we are now. We're grown men, and we're beginning our careers. He had started a business. I had started trying to practice law. And he told me one day that he was going to write an article for the then Montgomery Post, which was a weekly newspaper. And he had as a goal a weekly or monthly, I don't remember which, article to show people, both African American and white people, the real history of this country that had been left out of the educational system at the time when we were in school. And I remember the first article that he wrote. He said, my God, it's hard to write. He had failed creative writing twice at Penn State. However, during this many, many years between the fourth grader and the recipient of the most prestigious award in this whole region were 10 books, lectures, speeches, appearances in four continents, recognized worldwide as the foremost expert in the Underground Railroad, which is one of the great American stories where the races really did cooperate, particularly around here. Plymouth Meeting, all over Philadelphia. It also culminated, again, in the erection of 56 historical markers in the city of Philadelphia. When he started, there were none. You can't walk in a neighborhood in Philadelphia today without seeing historical markers of every type, including those recognizing African American achievement. This is one man that did all this. He called me one day and he said, I found a house. I've got to get this house. And he was really excited. This was in 1964. Now, in those days, when an African American said, I found a house, that was code for, I found somebody who will sell me a house outside of Norristown. Did you get it? So he bought that house in Lower Gwinnett. It still lives there. And the key to that house was that it had a full basement. It wasn't long before the collection began to grow, the one that he had started as a teenager, all through college, when they would travel as a football team or a track team. Charlie would disappear. His friends, Rosie Greer, Lenny Moore, Hall of Famers would tell me, because he was going to bookstores while everybody else was going to a party. Okay, so when it got to 20,000 items, books, pamphlets, papers, all on the same topic, his house, his basement was bursting. He had maybe two rows of shelving. And in 1982, when the collection was really established, he donated it to Temple University, which then created the Blockson collection, which you can see today in Sullivan Hall, which is the main administrative building at Temple. And it is a magnificent looking library. It now has over 700,000 various papers, books, magazines, you name it. And of course, it's a place for students, it's a place for scholars from around the country to learn about African American history in one place. Unique in this country, particularly when he formed the collection in the 60s, 70s, and then donated it in the 80s. In between the 82 Temple establishment, this man created a second collection, which he gave to Penn State, and there is a Blockson collection at Penn State. And I don't know if it was before or after that when you received the Distinguished Graduate Award from that major institution. I can go on, and I could tell you that he was the first African American to have had a cover story in National Geographic. This is the kid from Norristown that wanted to prove something, and then he had a second full-length article in National Geographic. But I think I can best describe this person as the most genuinely humble person that I have ever known. Fame followed him everywhere that he went, but he never let it get to his head. Was just a year, or no, I guess it's about 3 or 4 years now. You know, when you get old like us, Wilmer, time. He called me and he said, "You won't believe what just happened today." Now, one of his heroes in studying the Underground Railroad was Harriet Tubman, who's probably the best known conductor on the railroad. That's the person that would lead slaves to freedom at night. That her great niece called Charlie and said, "My great aunt left me some personal belongings, her prayer book, a shawl that had been given to her by the Queen of England, and I think some 28 other items." And I said, "Oh my goodness." And right away I start thinking, this will really establish the Blockson collection at Temple. I mean, nowhere else, nobody has these treasured items from Harriet Tubman, absolutely priceless if they were auctioned. And he said, "Oh, no. He said, "They don't belong to me." He said, "These belong to the world." And indeed, they're now on the mall at the African American Museum. And they're in a niche created for Harriet Tubman with his collection. So, I haven't gotten his signal yet, but I know I've gone past my time, and he's going like this. So I'm going to pause. There's a short film, I believe, that the committee wants to show, and after that, I will ask you, Charlie, just to come forward and say hello to everybody.
I'd like to start in my fourth grade year when a white teacher I had in Norristown, Pennsylvania, my hometown. When I asked her, did Negroes have a history? We were studying the Constitution. She said, no, Charles, Negroes were born to serve white people. I was stunned and went home and asked my parents about it. They said, no, we do have a history. So I began to read earlier after my teacher remarked. So later I went to the Salvation Army bookstore. The first book I purchased, I was sort of ashamed, but at the same time something told me to buy it. It was Little Black Sambo. It's still a part of the collection. I still have that same copy in this collection.
When we were in school, we didn't study history. Charlie didn't study history beyond what was required. We played sports. But all the while, he was collecting books.
So in 1948, they had the Junior Olympics here at the University of Pennsylvania at Franklin Field. And I won the shot put. After that, I left Franklin Field, took the subway down to 9th and Market Street to Larry's bookstore. And the title my eyes focused upon was called The Underground Railroad by William Steele. The first page I turned to, at the bottom of the page it says, escaped from Sussex, Delaware. The Blockson. They escaped from Delaware, came to Philadelphia, met with William Steele, the great Underground Railroad coordinator. Never did I realize that my people was involved in the Underground Railroad. I knew my grandfather sang these coded spirituals. There's a highway to heaven, there's a highway to heaven, walking up the King's Highway. The King's Highway was a trail, the Underground Railroad.
Here's a, 18-year-old who refuses to accept his teacher's comment that, African Americans didn't do anything. and magically finds the Underground Railroad lying in a pile of books outside Leary's and says, oh, this is something I need, right? And it starts his collection.
And later, it led me on to books by Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, the narrative and life of Frederick Douglass, The Confession of Nat Turner, the poems of Phillis Wheatley. It is the first book written by a person of African descent. The title Leather is bound in the skin of a black man. The great Paul Robeson. Since I was a child, I was attracted to his music, his voice, and so forth. And I met him several times. I have a huge collection on him.
The collection had become so large that it more than filled his basement where it was kept. And it was one of the largest such collections privately held in the country.
People started calling me, inquiring about the books. I didn't want to sell them. But then I decided on Temple.
When he came here, he brought with him 20,000 items. Today we have over 500,000 items and growing.
People from all over the world comes here, even young children. People said, you permit children to come? I said, by all means. I was a child, and I'm so pleased when children come in.
When Mr. Blockson started collecting when he was 9 years old, he collected everything. And so when researchers come here, it's basically a one-stop place for them. Last year, an exhibit opened at the Woodmere Art Museum of John W. Mosley's photographs. It's probably one of the most used collections here. John W. Mosley took photographs of African American life here in Philadelphia from the late 1930s through the late 1960s.
He did this wonderful book on Mosley's photography. I mean, the family gives him these boxes of negatives, and he makes a book out of it. And he designed why this photographer in Philadelphia from 50 years ago is important.
When we first met, I was a graphic arts designer. The Free Library was planning programs, events to go along with the Civil Rights Movement. We went on to do about 25 or 30 exhibits presenting Black history. When we was doing Marian Anderson came to Philadelphia because of Charles Blockson. That was her last visit to Philadelphia.
It was something to think about, being a little boy, listening to her music, and meeting her during her final years.
He called me one day and said, you know, I'm having trouble with the Historic Commission. I want to establish a marker commemorating Ned Hector, for whom Hector Street is named in Conshohocken. But they won't let me do it because there's nothing in writing which explains that he was the water boy for George Washington. But Charlie said, I know he was. So after some arm twisting in Harrisburg, we got the marker erected on Fayette Street in Conshohocken. That was the first marker in the state of Pennsylvania commemorating an African American.
My good friend, Dr. Bernard Watson, when he was in charge of the William Penn Foundation, he said, Charlie, why don't you do a marker program, the one you were telling me about, for Philly? As a result of that, Philadelphia has the largest African American marker program in the country.
It's a wonderful program that he developed on his own, wrote every one of them.
And just last year, it was the marker at the Seaport Museum. This is where our people came in. They landed there. People don't realize that one time that was the place for enslavement. Throughout my life, the Underground Railroad would play an important part. From the cover story of the National Geographic magazine till I became chairperson of the National Park Service Underground Railroad Advisory Committee. I was later donated 39 items that belonged to Harriet Tubman from her great niece, Mrs. Marilyn Wilkins of Philadelphia. Among those items was the shawl that Queen Victoria presented to Harriet Tubman in a hymn book. People said, why don't you sell it? I said, I would never sell the legacy of our people. I would never do that.
He couldn't decide where he wanted them to go. So he said he prayed on it. And finally he said, well, because she was such an internationally known figure, he felt that the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the Smithsonian, would be the best place for it.
I'm told over and over again that's one of the highlights of the museum. So this is where my book collecting excursion had taken me.
Probably Mr. Blockson is the father of Black history in this region.
And it took people like him to educate the rest of us as to the rich history that the African American community had in this country.
Being involved in the founding of the African American Museum here in Philadelphia, or being on a committee that pushed to have a monument where the President's house is, putting up historical markers, seeing that the Underground Railroad is established officially as a national treasure. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
If you think in terms and are knowledgeable about African American history in Philadelphia, he's the center.
From the time I was a little boy, going from Salvation Army bookstores, buying little black samples, traveling here and there. It seemed like I closed my eyes. Now I'm 83 years old, but books are still part of my life. People say, aren't you bored? I'm never bored. I'm being asked for more lectures and books and so much going on. If there is a book collected in heaven, I believe I would enjoy being a part of it.
We've come a long way, and Charlie, you did prove that there were Negro heroes, and today, sir, you are one of them.
Thank you very much. I have an issue with my back. I wish my football days were still here, but they're not here. I was putting in a light bulb and the chair slipped and I sprained my back. But it was always good to come from Norristown, no matter where I traveled around the world, where I lectured in Scandinavia, Africa, South America, wherever the State Department sent me on a book tour after I wrote my National Geographic article, everywhere I went. But I always remember there was one place, one song that was sang by students before the football games with our arch rival Lowell Marion. We're from Norristown. We hope you understand. We're the best team in the land. We're from what? Norristown. Let's hear it. We're from Norristown. Remember that song? And of course, though the earth be filled with flowers, what's the other word? So beautiful and sweet, and the roses and the lilies does what? I bet. We came from a proud town, and my soul brother, as I call Bob Butera, he's my soul brother. We've been brothers and friends for all these years, and I hear names of another friend of mine. He's not here. Great athlete, track and swimming, Al Cantella. There's so many names, Nancy Collier, Wilmer Crispin, and others. Please forgive me if I don't mention your name. Thank you very much on this honorable day. Let's keep it going. We're from where? We're from where? I can't hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Blockson, and thanks so much for the incredible filmmaking. That to me was documentary-style television on any network in this country. That was phenomenal, so thank you. And now we have a musical interlude. We have a treat for all of us, so please enjoy a musical selection from the Norristown Area High School Select Choir. It was simply beautiful, thank you. That was And I Will Fly by local composer John Conahan, performed by the Norristown Area High School Select Choir. Thank you all very much, that was beautiful. Now another special treat. Jerry Spinelli, from the class of 1959, is a nationally known, award-winning author. His well-known books include Space Station 7th Grade from 1982, the 1991 Newbery Medal-winning Maniac McGee, the Newbery Honor-winning 1998 novel Ringer, the 2000 novel Stargirl, and the 2003 historical novel Milkweed. Jerry's stories have also been made into films, and we are thrilled that he is here with us tonight, and he has graciously signed several copies of books that he has published, and we're going to give 3 of them away to 3 lucky recipients. So I'd ask that Jerry Spinelli come forward, say a few words, and we'll have another fantastic raffle for some lucky winners. So Mr. Spinelli, we'd love to have you come forward.
Thank you. I'm standing here in the place of my father, one of the founders of the organization. And I've come armed with more than books. Does anybody know what this is? You've all had hokey pokies. This is the scraper that he scraped the ice with. Thanks to Becky Davies and her mother. I'm going to leave them on the stage here if you care to come up. Don't steal it, they're mine. Anybody know what this is? It's a baseball. What kind of baseball? Where'd it come from? Prison. It's a string ball. When they played baseball in the prison yard, somebody hit a home run over the tall gray stone wall onto Marshall Street. There would be kids there waiting to get one of these. Here it is, 60 years later. That too, yeah. And this is thank you to Shorty Landis. Put him here. Okay, I have duties to pick 3 winners from something. Names? Let's go. I'm going deep. I hit 2 home runs in my life.
Want to do the honors, Jerry?
Go ahead.
All right, there you go. First, Mary Jane Clark Moyer, Lee Holmes Sr., and Charles Holmes. The Holmes family's going home with some books tonight. So Mary Jane Clark Moyer, Charles Holmes, and Lee Holmes. See Shorty Landis, and you'll have those wonderful commemorative editions courtesy of Mr. Spinelli. Jerry, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight and for saying a few words. Very gracious of you. And I, too, like so many people, have vivid memories of Lou Spinelli at every Norristown sporting event. And so this leads us to our keynote address this evening, and we're incredibly fortunate to have a woman with us whom I've known since we were in high school together, although she didn't remind me tonight, but I am aware that she is younger than I am. So Maribeth Roman Schmidt is a 1984 graduate of Norristown Area High School. She holds a degree in journalism from the Pennsylvania State University and a master's in education from Arcadia University. Maribeth founded and led an award-winning public relations firm, Vault Communications, for 25 years before retiring in 2015. She's currently executive director and spokesperson for Penn Staters for Responsible Stewardship, a watchdog organization advocating for improved and transparent university governance. Maribeth has served as Vice President and President of the Board of Directors of Variety, the children's charity, and has just been named as their interim CEO, where she leads strategic planning, development, and organizational change. She and her husband, Mark, live in Gwinnett Valley with their 3 children, Erica, Jack, and Lindsay, and we rightfully inducted her into the Norristown Area High School Hall of Fame in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, Maribeth Roman Schmidt.
Following Bob Butera and Charles Blockson. Really, Wilmer? And then Jerry Spinelli. Wow. Even my mom was concerned that I was following that. Well, what a special occasion. Thank you to Wilmer and Nancy and Charles and Jim for your enduring vision in creating the Norristown Area High School Hall of Fame and Hall of Champions. You were the real champions, not just tonight, but every single day over the past 40 years, which we just calculated to be about 400 meetings over that time, 10 meetings a year for 40 years. That you've unselfishly dedicated yourselves to building these special and unique halls that are unmatched anywhere. Thank you. Thank you also for your gracious invitation to join you here tonight. I mean, honestly, when Wilmer calls and asks you something, is there any other answer you can give him besides yes? I'm honored to be here with a room full of such accomplished alumni in basically every aspect of life and over so many decades. It's really, truly impressive. You may not realize it, but in one way or another, each of you and many other inductees who aren't even here tonight have provided me and countless others with inspiration throughout our lives. Looking back, as I was growing up in West Norton in the 70s and 80s, as a second-generation Norristown Eagle, there were successful alumni all around me. Those who were or would be in these halls of fame and champions. And my proximity to their success, defined in so many different ways, helped to build the foundation for my own life. I have vivid memories of sitting on the floor at Burnside Elementary School in a classroom where Charles Blockson taught us about African American history and shared some of his most treasured artifacts on his way to notoriety, achievement, and success, which we all just saw. We'd drive down Route 73 and skip back, and looking at that sprawling rancher off to the side of the road, my mom would often remind us, U.S. Senator Dick Schweiker lived there. He went to Norristown, you know. And how about the Butera family? Their contributions over generations to our community have been immeasurable. Mr. B was simply Nina and Bobby's dad to me back then. But it wasn't lost on me that I was coming up through the very same school that he had. And in fact, I do remember taking days off from school to help him campaign for governor and being very, very proud when he took the helm of the Flyers, the Devils, and the Convention Center. The late, great Judge Davenport waved to us each morning as we waited for our school bus, as he began his long daily walk to and from the courthouse, all the way from Schuylkill Avenue. My parents frequently reminded us that Olympic swim coach Dick Schulberg was a product of Norristown. I'd sit across the Thanksgiving table from my Uncle Frank Bishop when he wasn't tightening my braces and be reminded not just of his athletic accomplishments, but of the daily impact he made on basically anyone who played East Norton Little League or American Legion baseball in the community. He was really the godfather of baseball around here. Reading about our district attorney, Mike Marino, in the Times-Herald every day. I'd also be reminded of his Norristown roots and which of my aunts may have been in his class in high school. Jenny Hall. She was a few years ahead of me. Her sister Mary was in my class. But her fierce work ethic on the court was an important quality she handed down to future generations of Eagles. And I even remember not too long ago that Roger Grove was especially proud still that he had opened his weight room to you the first time for a girl back in the day. I also counted Lisa Ortlet Cornish in my Norristown circle. Not because I even knew her a little bit, but because I had been told once that her father George was my grandmother's student teacher. Think of all of those degrees of separation. I rationalized that made us almost family, and followed with great interest Lisa's many athletic accomplishments during high school, college, and beyond. Never losing sight of the fact that, while I sure couldn't dunk or spike, or even coach for that matter, I could succeed along my own path with the very same Norristown foundation that Lisa and I both shared. Even throughout my own children's years, I've been reminded of Norristown Hall of Fame success every time I look at their bookshelf full of titles and movies by everyone's favorite children's author, Jerry Spinelli. You see, I believe that the currency that we trade here in Norristown, the way that we've all learned to pay it forward, is not dollars and cents. It's something far more valuable, and that's pride. Pride in Norristown was infused in me no matter how old I was, no matter where I went, and even when I wasn't paying attention. Driving down the street, visiting at a friend's house, watching an upperclassman excel on the court, reading the newspaper, waiting at the bus stop. These totally different, often spontaneous, and largely underestimated encounters with really, really good people who were very accomplished and fellow Norristown Eagles, they were absolutely my building blocks. And I suspect they were all yours too. But what about the kids who are walking through the halls of our schools today? Do you think they are enjoying the same proximity to alumni success that we had? Being constantly reminded, even subconsciously, that they can achieve anything that they set their minds to. Sure, some of them definitely are. But unfortunately, I don't think as many of them as should be or could be. Even though the world has gotten smaller, we've also become way more spread out. Many of us don't live or work in the district to have those day-to-day interactions as we had as kids. Celebrations like homecoming and championships that used to reunite us don't have the same appeal, or they just aren't happening as much. But I do think we can try to change that. What if we all worked a little harder to give today's students that same infusion of Norristown pride that we experience? Consider the database of detailed alumni biographies that Wilmer and his team have meticulously amassed over the years. Photos, stories, certificates, rosters. Nancy and Wilmer talked about all of them. It really is amazing. Piles and piles and piles all reside in a little office in the high school. We have a treasure trove of history and resources and role models that are right at our fingertips. The Hall of Fame and Hall of Champions founders and committees have done an incredible job bringing us all together. Now, I believe it's our turn to take a step further and a step closer to the students. There are literally hundreds of inductees who can provide networking and guidance and inspiration to the future generations of Norristown Eagles. Today's students should know that Christine Allman is a Muskegum alum and trailblazer in international business. The D. Fichter Cross made her name at Shippensburg and is an awesome field hockey and lacrosse coach. They should know that the Danahower Bridge is named for a fellow Norristown Eagle, and that Fred Lobb helped create the Valley Forge Convention and Visitors Bureau. That Phil Nurr was one heck of a javelin thrower, and Charles Holmes once hit a 400-yard homer against Cheltenham. We may not be able to duplicate the repetition of seeing Judge Davenport every single morning on the way to school, but I'm willing to bet that if we summon all the energy in this room and that of our fellow alumni, we can make a significant impact for years to come. We owe that to the students of our alma mater, and we certainly owe it to Wilmer and Nancy and Charles and Jim and the many, many other Hall of Fame and Hall of Champions committee members whose passion and dedication we are blessed to celebrate tonight. Thank you.
Maribeth, thank you. Your pride in and passion for Norristown is evident. And when you were talking about all those things, I remember Mr. Blockson in my 8th grade social studies class at Eisenhower, right? You just evoked some amazing memories for me, so thank you for sharing those thoughts with all of us. How about another round of applause for Maribeth Roman Schmidt? I will say the only two words that or the only two phrases I didn't hear tonight from among these amazing speakers were tomato pie and Zeps, but still very important to all of us, I think we'll agree. Now it comes time for thank yous and to finish our program. And I hope you've enjoyed all of this as much as I have. To have such a sense of history in our shared existence is a special thing. And this is a volunteer effort put together by folks who do it because they love Norristown, they love our school, and they care about our community. And that's remarkable to me. So we want to certainly thank the Norristown Area High School Select Choir, the Junior ROTC Color Guard, my friend John Doyle and his students for videotaping tonight. Just a great job. I am told there's an added bonus that the flowers on your table are able to be taken with someone tonight. So I was given free rein to select the criteria by which we would decide how this will work. So you'll have to talk to the people at your table, and the person whose birthday is closest to today gets to take the flowers home tonight, unless you negotiate some other terms or condition at your table, which is not my responsibility. But please make sure that we take the flowers home tonight. So now, how do we end every ceremony of the Norristown Area High School Hall of Fame and Hall of Champions? We sing the alma mater, right? You had to learn it for graduation, right? I had to learn it for graduation. I still remember it. I'm not going to have to look at the screen, but if you do, the words will be up on the screen for you. If you used to sing in the chorus and you want to come up and join the select choir, you can stand with these wonderful young voices. But regardless, you do need to stand. So please rise and join us all and join our select choir in singing our alma mater, the blue and white. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful evening. Drive safely, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks so much for coming.